Well, it's the end of an era as Mesut Ozil confirms that he has joined Fenerbahce on a free transfer. Hey guys, Fletch here, bringing you another Fletch Talks video, and this video is concerning the one and only Mesut Ozil, who has completed a free transfer move to Fenerbahce from Arsenal after agreeing a mutual termination, an early mutual termination of the German superstar's contract with the club. Before we go on with the video in which we're going to talk about Mesut Ozil and his career at Arsenal and why everything happened the way it did, from his controversial outbursts on social media to his demise in form and performances on the pitch, don't forget to hit that like button and also subscribe if you're new to the channel. Both things will always and forever be greatly appreciated. But for now, we get on with the rest of the video in which we're talking about the man they call Mesut Ozil. The German playmaker was set to leave Arsenal at the end of the season anyway, when his contract was due to expire with the club and therefore making him a free agent. But of course, as we now understand it, Arsenal and Ozil are allegedly close to agreeing an early mutual termination of his contract that will clear the path for him to officially sign with Turkish side Fenerbahce, a move which Ozil has described as a dream come true for him. Ozil, of course, signed for the Gunners back in 2013, and as he signed from Real Madrid for a fee believed to be in the region of £42.5 million. And in the 7.5 years of his stay with the club, Ozil recorded 44 goals and 77 assists in 254 appearances. But of course, more so in recent seasons, Ozil has been making a lot more noise off the pitch than he has on the pitch. Now, the words Mesut Ozil and controversy seem to go hand in hand very, very well. Back in 2018, of course, Ozil caused a bit of a stir when he voiced his support for the Turkish president. Ozil has Turkish roots, of course, and there was controversy surrounding this reveal, and as it was basically a question from the German people of where his allegiances lie. And of course, what followed didn't help when Germany went to the 2018 World Cup and went on to perform in a humiliating and disappointing manner in what was an absolute train wreck of a World Cup defence. And in the aftermath, because of Ozil's actions on social media, he was actually put out as a bit of a scapegoat by the German media as to why Germany performed so poorly in Russia. And that was all due to him voicing his support for the Turkish president. As a result, Ozil felt betrayed, angered, and upset by his own country that he represented. And he felt like he was hung out to dry by Germany, and went on to officially retire from international football. Simple as that. More controversy came a year or so later when Ozil voiced his opinion on the current alleged state of the Uyghur Muslim persecution, the alleged Uyghur Muslim persecution in China. His opinion on the situation was very loud and clear for all to see and all to hear, but as a result, China pulled the Arsenal-Manchester City game from their TV broadcast programming that week, and Arsenal were forced to come out and distance themselves from Ozil's comments, claiming that the views expressed by the playmaker were his and his alone. The club doesn't share in these views or opinions, they claimed, and again, it left Ozil angry and upset that he wasn't even backed up by his own club. And, you know, many people get confused with this story because many people think that this was maybe the major reason as to why Arsenal and Mikel Arteta have left him out of the squad on many occasions. But actually, he did play fairly regularly from this point on for the new manager Arteta at the time. But that obviously changed following the UK's first lockdown. Yeah, it was over the course of the first UK lockdown that Mesut Ozil was back in the news headlines, as he was being outed as to being one of 3 Arsenal players to refuse to take a pay cut for the club. Ozil was the only one mentioned. The other 2 Arsenal players were actually not mentioned, and we can all probably hazard a guess as to why that is. But the news headlines ran that 3 Arsenal players were refusing to take a pay cut to help out the club at the time, where of course everybody, regardless of whether you were involved with football or not, was having to find ways of saving money. And it included football, whether you were at the top of the game earning millions like Man City, for example, or whether you were like bottom of like the conference or whatever, everybody was having to find ways of saving money. Football was no different. But in this case, they used Ozil as a tool to portray him as a villain, portray him as being selfish because he was earning 350k a week and he wasn't making the similar sort of sacrifices that pretty much every footballer at the time was doing. But in typical media fashion, of course, there was seemingly more to this story than meets the eye. The media seemed to want a scapegoat and, of course, clicks and views to their various articles. And given the outspoken and controversial nature that is Mesut Ozil, he ticks all them boxes that the media look for in this partially truthful but very weak overall story. Ozil came out afterwards and clarified why he didn't take a pay cut, claiming that whilst he wanted to, he claimed that the club was very mysterious and very unclear as to where the 12.5% of his wages would actually be going and whether it would actually help the club or not. And this all came out in an interview where a week later, of course, or a week beforehand, I should say, Arsenal had cut 55 jobs from the club. So read into that what you will. But it was clear that there was more to this story than met the eye at first. But it could be the possible reason as to why Ozil hasn't been seen in a competitive Arsenal fixture since before lockdown. But it wasn't just off the pitch incidents that have obviously been going against Mesut Ozil. It's on the pitch things that have been going against him as well. And it's clear that Ozil's performances on the pitch have somewhat declined over recent years. And it's possibly coincided with the off-the-field issues that he's been involved with. It's incredibly frustrating because he made such a name for himself before joining Arsenal. You think about how he burst onto the scene back over in Germany. You think about how he made a name for himself in the German national team, especially that 2010 World Cup, for example. And you think about the way that when he got his transfer to Real Madrid, how he lit up La Liga over there before joining the Gunners. And from there, his Gunners career, for the first few years at least, was actually pretty good. His goals contribution record was pretty decent, whether it be goals or assists. It weren't as bad as what people are making out to as what it is right now. He was constantly getting into double figures in terms of both goals and assists. And, you know, special mentions that 2015-2016 season where Ozil was so close to breaking Thierry Henry's record of 20 assists by securing 19 himself. So that needs to be especially mentioned. But as I mentioned before, the whole Germany saga and what followed in after the 2018 World Cup didn't help him, I felt. His form seemed to take a major nosedive after that point. Let's also not forget that domestically and club level wise, this was also at the time where Arsene Wenger left Arsenal and was replaced by Unai Emery. So maybe that could have been another factor as to why Ozil's form dipped completely from that point onwards. Because after that, inconsistency became a major factor within Ozil's playing style. His work rate and his consistency got called into question a lot by supporters and by neutral fans and pundits alike. And, you know, Arsenal fans and supporters believed that the club were paying Ozil 350k a week just to sit at home and play Fortnite. So there are a lot of things to consider overall, the bigger picture as to the whole demise of on-the-pitch issues for Mesut Ozil. And look, taking everything into consideration, taking all the factors that I spoke about so far in this video, I think that overall, all of the factors, all of the elements, all of the layers that I spoke about have all contributed to Ozil being excluded from the playing squad for this season, and why his overall form has somewhat declined over recent seasons and recent years. His outspoken nature, the fact that he felt betrayed and upset by what happened with the German national side, and the whole pay cut saga, along with his decline and inconsistency in his performances on the pitch. I don't think you can just pin that down to just one specific incident. I think you've got to take it as a whole, as a collective, and that is what the bigger picture is here. Because despite being outspoken on a number of various political issues, he still played for the club until obviously lockdown was over and football returned, because that was when the whole pay cut saga kind of really hit the media, hit the online community, and that was the last time we saw Ozil, if you remember correctly. There's also the possibility that Mikel Arteta just didn't see Ozil fitting within his squad going forward and just didn't want him to be played because he just didn't fit his style of play, and overall possibly felt that a change of scenery for the German playmaker would actually be the best for him and best for the club. Arsenal are currently going for a rebuilding stage, of course, and there's a lot of dead weight and other players that need to be moved on and get off the wage bill at the club. Ozil, of course, being the top earner and clearly not in the Gunners' short-term or long-term future plans, would be top of that list to get rid of course, and it only makes sense, and it's why an early termination is set to be agreed, and that is why he's now off to Turkey. But you know what, when you look at his 7.5-year stay at Arsenal overall, you look at everything that has gone on with him, and you look at his performances mainly on the pitch, you could say that maybe we didn't see the entirety of Mesut Ozil, of what we expected from him, or we didn't get to see him perform at a top level on a more consistent basis. He had his moments, sure, he had seasons where he looked good here and there, and like he looked like the real deal, and at times looked like one of the best in the league, and one of the best the league has to offer. But we never got to see that on a more consistent level, particularly towards the end of his Arsenal career. Outside influences, of course, you could look at as being a reason as to why his form declined and why his performances on the pitch declined over time. But, you know, he isn't entirely blameless there either. You'd expect that he would take some responsibility for why his own performances and form declined over the years. And, you know, whilst that is fair to say, and whilst everything that I've said in this video I think is also a fair kind of comment to add to the conversation, I also think that at times the club didn't help him in its whole entirety. Ozil was clearly in his best form when he was around players of a similar ability to him, and when players around him were firing on all cylinders, and he got the best out of them as they got the best out of him. I'm talking about the likes of an inform and firing on all cylinders, Olivier Giroud, for example, who would finish off the chances that Ozil would create, or Aaron Ramsey, particularly in that 2014 season where Ramsey was just unplayable at times. And of course, Alexis Sanchez, another recent superstar of Arsenal's history. Those two in particular, one of the best partnerships in Arsenal history in recent seasons especially. When they were firing all cylinders, they were very, very, very good together. But from the club's point of view, from my point of view to the club, I just didn't see it on a consistent enough basis that this club was fully committed to building the team around a superstar player like Ozil, or even like Sanchez, and make them the vocal point. And I think that that element of the story isn't told enough, isn't spoke about enough, and isn't considered enough as to being the bigger picture, as to understanding this whole Mesut Ozil saga. You know what, as well, there are possibly more stuff that went on behind the scenes too, so to speak, but that we're not fully aware of yet. And you know what, maybe we never will be. Maybe there was a lot more that went on, we may never know. Maybe stuff will come out in the coming days, weeks, months, maybe even years. But to me, the club may not have done enough to support Mesut Ozil, not just from his opinionated stances or whatever, but from building the team around him. But of course, like I always say, this is just one man's thoughts and one man's opinions on this particular topic. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of this Mesut Ozil situation? What do you make of his move to Fenerbahce? What do you make of his time at Arsenal? What is his legacy at Arsenal? What does the future hold for both Arsenal and Mesut Ozil and even Fenerbahce at this point, if you are knowledgeable on the Turkish side? I'd love to know your thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, whatever you want to call it, down in the comment section below. I'm sure they'll all make for interesting reading. Otherwise, hit the like button on the way if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things will be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video, and I will see and speak with you all again soon in another video.